This is John Colo at DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, I'm going to give you guys some tips on using and troubleshooting your vacuum blender. We sell many different vacuum blenders at Discount Juicers, including the best-selling Tribest Dynapro DPS 2250. Also, the Biochef attachment that will convert your traditional Vitamix or classic Vitamix, not the new Ascent version with the smart detect system. It will not work on that, so that you can vacuum blend. And we also sell the Kuvings vacuum blender. We're going to share with you guys 3 tips in this episode. First tip is how to turn a standard mason jar into a vacuum container. If you have a vacuum blender that uses a separate pump, including the Dynapro or the Biochef and some electrical tape. The next tip I'll be sharing with you guys was sent in actually by one of my viewers who bought a Dynapro from me, but she really didn't like how you have to basically put in new batteries. It takes like 8 AA batteries. When they run out, you get about maybe 100 or so uses of the pump. And she told me about a plug-in adapter so that you can turn your Dynapro pump to plug-in. So this is amazing. We're going to go ahead and check that one out. And the last and final thing I want to share with you guys today is troubleshooting your vacuum blender. You know, the biggest part of a vacuum blender is creating a vacuum before you blend so you don't oxidize the valuable phytonutrients and phytochemicals, including things like antioxidants and polyphenols that can be really damaged by blending. In addition, when you're blending traditionally without the vacuum blender, you are adding a lot of air into the mixture that can give you gas and bloating and air coming out both ends, if you know what I mean. In addition, it'll make anything you blend up, from smoothies to dressings to sauces, kind of like you'll lose the flavor profile. It won't look as good. It'll be totally aerated. Last time I drank non-vacuum blended smoothie and salad dressing, it tasted like foam to me because there was so much air, because I'm used to like vacuum blending. And I like to say to everybody, once you go vacuum, you won't go back, because you know the difference it could make, and you'll knock yourself upside the head like I did when I learned about it. Like, wow, I've been blending wrong all these years. Any case, let's get into this episode. So the first tip, I'm going to show you guys how you could take a standard mason jar, whether you have a wide mouth or a narrow mouth, whatever the size, 8 ounce, 16, 32, or even 64 ounce, and turn it into a vacuum jar simply and easily. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take the flat lids that come with your mason jars. You're going to go ahead and put it on top, and then you're going to need something to poke a hole in it. You know, the easiest thing would be like a push pin that has like a little, thing that you could hold on to push a little hole into it. Of all things, I don't have a push pin around here, so I'm just going to use an eye bolt that has a nice little sharp point on it. We're just going to go ahead and put that in and pop it down. And we're just going to create a really tiny, small hole in the middle of the top. It doesn't really matter the size of the hole. I would recommend you guys have the smallest hole possible, because this will probably work better in the long run. Once you have the hole, you can suck a vacuum on it, but once you remove the pump, the vacuum will all come out because the air will get let back in. So what we're going to use is some electrical tape. I have the black electrical tape. You can get this stuff at Harbor Freight or even like a dollar store. And all we're going to simply do is we're going to go ahead and peel off just maybe like an inch or so of the electrical tape. I like the electrical tape because it's quite flexible, so it'll really work for this task quite well. Other tapes may not work so well, so this is the only tape I recommend. You cut off like an inch or so, and then we're going to go ahead and cut off like a small smidgen of electrical tape right there. So this is the sticky side here. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape the small piece onto the middle of the sticky side of the electrical tape. So now if we look at the bottom, we have sticky, not sticky, and sticky. This not sticky area is going to go right over the hole that we've created. Try to get it totally centered up right in there. And with that, you just paste it on there, and now what's going to happen is the tape is being held on by both sides, and now you've created a little channel way so the air could come up through the hole and out the 2 sides of the channel once you put a vacuum on it. The cool thing is to undo the vacuum, you can just go ahead and pull up the tape, and that'll let all the air back in, so you can take, drink your smoothie or whatever you vacuum saved in the jar from, dried goods like nuts and seeds, to anything else, to berries. So now we're going to put this on the top. Now the Dynapro, because it is so fat and wide, I don't believe this will work with a narrow mouth, so I always recommend the wide mouth. They're easy to clean anyways. We're going to go ahead and put that on the top. We're going to press the button. The pump will come on, the blue light will come on, and what's happening now is it's pumping all the excess oxygen out of the container. And the pump can run, I don't know, maybe like up to a minute or so, and evacuate all the excess air. Alright, once it's evacuated all the excess air, it'll basically turn itself off. You can now and then pop this out, and if you look, we now have the lid stuck on. So this is probably the best and easiest way to vacuum seal a jar. I have shown in the past where you could vacuum seal it in the Carafe, link down below to that video if I remember. I no longer recommend that because the issue with that is that once you have the lid on, it's vacuumed in there, but then you gotta like literally get your fingernails underneath the lid to pull it off, right? With this method, all you simply need to do is take a little fingernail and pull up the tape, and listen very carefully as I pull this tape back. Well, you can't really hear it, but it's letting the air in really slowly, and then we could finally pull the lid off, alright? So this is the new and improved way of vacuum sealing a mason jar. You don't need to purchase any additional lids or anything. Now, be forewarned that, the lids that come with your mason jars have like a little gasket on there. And I've seen that maybe after using it like, I don't know, 10, 20 times, the gasket kind of gets crushed in, and then it no longer seals properly. So you have to get some of these extra spare lids. They're pretty inexpensive, just a couple dollars for 12, because they will lose the gasket at some point and not retain a good vacuum. Tip number 2 is how you can get rid of the AA batteries. I'm not a fan of AA batteries, and I've never really liked that Tribest has not come out with a, rechargeable battery that can be popped in here. I mean, this thing just literally comes out. This thing comes out as a whole pack, and it's literally just 12 volts that attaches to like a 9-volt kind of adapter dealie. And so a customer wrote in and said, John, I bought this thing. It's an adjustable AA battery power supply kit. So we're going to go ahead and open this up and see what we got. So inside this kit we have what looks like batteries, but these are just dummy batteries because they basically just have like probably some kind of wire that goes from end to end to kind of keep the continuity. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull out my batteries, and I'm going to probably reuse these for another use. And we're going to go ahead and put these basically batteries in place. Now most of these batteries are just basically transferring the current from end to end. Make sure you put them in the right direction. Alright, so we got 7 of them in there, and there's one left. The one left is actually inside this little box here. And when it comes out, what it has like a little wire attached to it. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the last position. We're going to then go ahead and connect this whole pack to the plug in the pump. We're going to go ahead and then close this up. And what we're going to do is we're going to feed this little cord out of the bottom. So you guys can see the cord comes out, has this little plug here that we will plug into this plug-in adapter, plug that in, and now very important, you need to set the proper voltage here. And they give you this handy little tool to correct it to 12 volts, so you have to have the arrow pointing to 12 volts. It clicks over in each place. Now we have it over at 12 volts. Next step is we're going to go ahead and take it and plug it into a power strip here. You could unfurl the cord a little bit, plug this in, and now this should be totally plugged in and powered so that we no longer have to go through batteries. Wow, as you guys hear that, the pump is even running stronger because as your batteries run down, the pump does not run at full strength. So this is quite impressive. I really like this solution a lot so that you no longer need to buy the batteries to use your pump and also have your pump more efficiently. Alright, if you're interested in getting this kit, link is down below in the description to this exact kit, so you guys can have the same performance that I'm going to have now out of my Tribest Vacuum Pump. So the last thing I want to do in this episode is actually go over one of the biggest problems that my customers have had with the vacuum blending system, which is not being able to pull a vacuum before you start blending. I've had this issue too. I'm not immune, and I've learned that there are some certain things that happens so that it will not allow you to create a good vacuum on your container. The first step is to determine what is the problem. Is the problem the vacuum pump? Is the pump not working? Or is it the container itself? So to do this, I mean, the way I do it is I could start the pump. It starts the pump. I could put it on my cheek. And if you feel your cheek start to get sucked like that and it sticks on, and if you do it too long, you're probably gonna get a hickey there. I don't have a girlfriend, I just gotta try this vacuum pump, alright? Anyways, if the pump sucks on your face and you feel it pulling, chances are your pump is working. So that's the first step. So that means the issue is with your carafe. The next thing is to find out what's going on with your carafe. So the easiest thing to do is that the carafes can wear out over time. There's some seals in the bottom of the carafe that if this bottom nut was not installed properly and it's too loose, then it'll let air seep into the carafe, so now you'll be sucking air from the bottom up through the top of the vacuum pump and you will probably never achieve a good seal. How you can test this is very simply and easily is fill up the carafe with some clear water. Then you're going to go ahead and put your lid on, and we'll talk to you guys about putting the lid on in a second. Then you could put your pump on there, and we're going to start the pump. And what you're looking for is, if the pump is going and it's pumping, like it is now. Oh, you guys see that? You guys see this? This is exactly what happens. You guys see the bottom? This means you have a bad seal in this container. So, you know, in some cases, if the seal is not that badly damaged, you can still achieve a good vacuum and blend. That being said, on this seal, you know, I would contact the manufacturer to see if they will cover that under the warranty, because you guys could clearly see this pump is literally pumping air from the outside of the container into the container because we have a bad seal on there. And actually, it's a pretty good leak there. Oh, and despite having the leak, the pump shut off, and we have achieved a pretty good vacuum on the container, although slowly but surely the vacuum is being let out. How you know if you have a good vacuum is you got to pull up on this tab and listen carefully. Yeah, so we had a good vacuum on there despite there being a leak in this container. So yeah, that container has a leak. This is my good container. And so now there's another issue on why you can't achieve a vacuum with the Tribest, and this has happened to me actually in the middle of videos when I was not paying attention. So what I'll share with you guys what's going on here. So what's going on here is this top of this carafe has this little flute here so that you can have a pour spout. And if the top is not properly aligned, then it will not seat properly. So for example, this is a no-brainer. If you put it like this, the top's not on because, you know, this little part here, this little tab on the lid is going onto this, and then it doesn't seat properly. So what I like to do to prevent this from occurring is make sure one of these tabs here is lined up with one of these tabs here or here. And when you do that, the lid will be fully seated down. So this is correct. And let me go ahead and then the other thing is I like the tabs because you could hold on to the tab with your thumb and put your finger on that little tab and pull up, and then you could easily push this up, because what happens is this is under vacuum lock and you just try to pull this up, it's kind of stuck in there. So that's actually another test. If this lid is stuck on and like literally popping itself down due to the automatic vacuum that's created in there, it might not pop down, but I mean pretty much it's sucking in. You know, that's an indicator that one of the seals are not making a good seal, and I'll show you guys about that in a second. But you want to make sure that it's totally completely down. Now the other thing is if you do this improperly, because I've done this before, where you kind of line it up not exactly right, and this little edge here of this little protrusion is sitting on this, it will not make a good seal, so you won't be able to properly vacuum blend. So you want to make sure that's seated properly. Now the next thing that happens on all the different kind of vacuum blenders is that you could have a bad seal. With the Tribest Dynapro, you get a few extra seals included with the machine, and there are a few seals that could go bad or maybe not installed properly that could cause your issue. So the first seal is this big outer seal. It comes off fairly easily. There's a little groove inside the plastic lid that it goes onto. And you want to make sure there is no dirt or debris in this seal on both sides. Okay. The next seal that you got is this seal that really shouldn't have to come out, that I haven't really seen leak or anything. As long as it is in place, I would not remove it. It's a seal that's kind of almost built into the top of the lid here. And then you have another seal right here. This one comes out. It's just like this little circular O-ring deal. And you want to make sure that is properly seated down in the channel and completely flat. Okay. Then finally you have the little plug here, and this is where I've had the most problems. If a little bit of dirt gets underneath this plug, on the bottom of this plug, or on the top of this little spout cap thing here, then you won't be able to pull a vacuum because air is being allowed in as fast as the pump can pull it out. Okay. The other thing I'm going to show you guys is actually on this little seal here. In order to make good contact, you have to put this little cap thing into the lid. And then don't just put it there, you got to put it in there and then turn it to completely tight. If you just put it in there a little bit and tighten it, it's not going to compress down, so you're not going to be able to achieve a proper vacuum. So we're going to crank it all the way in there tight to make sure it's fully tight, and then you want to look through the plastic to make sure that it's sealing all the way down and it's not bunched up or anything. Okay. On this little gasket, this little plug thing, I like to basically wash off the bottom and then dry it with a paper towel. Also wash off the top of this and dry it with a paper towel. Make sure there are even no specks of dirt, specks of dust or anything, because that could hinder the whole process. Food particles could make this just simply not work for you guys. So take out this little plug, and then basically once you know it's clean, you could go ahead and put this back in there. It just kind of pops in place. A little bit of a challenge to get it popped in place, but it's not too difficult. And then you can get it basically put back into place. And then finally you want to make sure this is completely clean, and then you could go ahead and put this gasket back in place as well. And I'll start by just basically put it in the channel and work it around, and just go ahead and put it all the way in. So you should have a pretty much good seal. Make sure it's completely sealed in there, and make sure there are no defects in your gasket. If there are little ridges or holes, that means it is defective and it should be replaced. This whole setup looks like it's working good, so we're going to go ahead and put that on, line up the top appropriately, place that down, and then we're going to go ahead and take our plug-in vacuum pump now and pull a vacuum on it, and let's see what happens. Alright, so it took approximately 1 minute to pump out all the air out of an empty carafe with the plug-in adapter and the pump running at full strength. So if you have the carafe half full, it may take less time because it doesn't have to pump out as much air. How you know if it's done is you could go ahead and pull this off. You could put it back on and press it again. It'll go on for a second and then cut itself off because it determined oh, I've already pulled enough vacuum out of here, I can't pull anymore. And so then now this lid should be locked down in there, and how you will know is when you go to release it. Oh, and the other thing is, once you get a vacuum on it, you want to go ahead and carefully listen. Put it next to your ear around the different areas where it could leak to see if you hear an air leak, like a psst sound. And if you have a psst sound, that means the air is getting sucked into the carafe because you have a leak somewhere. Normally when that happens, I've seen that happen right in this little top piece here. It usually doesn't happen on one of the other gaskets. But yeah, I have no leaks on here. And now to get this off, because now it's literally suctioned in there, we can't just pull it off. We need to release the vacuum and listen carefully. We let out the vacuum, and now I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and we can now pull off the lid. Okay, on the Biochef carafe, pretty much the same deal, right? Go ahead and lift this up, and there's 3 gaskets on this one as well. You have a double gasket here that is pretty much stuck on to the lid pretty good, so you can go ahead and remove that. And you want to make sure this channel here is fully washed and clean, no debris. Same with the inside of this gasket here, and same with the outside. You also want to make sure that there's nothing in the track and that this gasket material is in good shape and there's no nicks or cracks in it. That could cause a vacuum leak as well. Next, on the Biochef lid, we could go ahead and turn this out. Once again, there is a gasket in this lid, and the gasket there is a little more stout. It's this guy right here. And it's not just a flat gasket, it's flat with like a little protrusion. So if you do take this out, the little lip thing points down. So this basically just goes in here, and that's pretty solid. Make sure it's fully seated in there. Looks like you have to maybe press it to fit to make sure it's fully tight in there if you do remove it. And then finally you have this little plug in the lid here that if you pull it out, it's a little bit challenging to get out, but you could go ahead and pull it out once again, and there's a little plug there. Make sure this little area here is clean of debris, as well as the bottom of this plug here is clean of debris as well. Mine is already clean. And then we go ahead and reinsert it very carefully, being sure not to damage it. And it goes right in. It fits a lot tighter than the Dynapro one. And then we could go ahead and once again, you got to put this in and then screw it in to make sure it's fully tight, because as you tighten it, it crunches down the little seal so that you don't get an air leak. If you just kind of like put it in there and then turn it like a little bit, you're going to leak some air. So you need to make sure you go to the full stop to the end to make sure it's fully tightened down, but don't over tighten because then it'll fall out. Alright, so then finally we're going to go ahead and reinstall this gasket on here, and it basically just has to go into the little groove on top of the lid. I just washed these guys with soap and water, and it looks like that's fully installed, so we should be able to put this on the top there. And the Tribest Vacuum Pump is what I have today, and actually that will not work on the Biochef. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I really hope you guys learned about the common problem that could happen with your vacuum blender is a vacuum leak, so that you cannot achieve vacuum. As you guys learn, you can see that could happen if you have a bad bearing, which would only happen if you use the machine a lot and pulled a lot of vacuums on the Carafe, unless it was just effective from the get-go. But the more common problem is that, number one, on the Dynapro, you're not seating the lid properly on the top. I mean, if you seat it like this, you guys can see there's like a little gap right there because this is not going down. No matter how much vacuum you pull, this will not ever work properly. So you need to make sure this is fully rotated down, that both these tabs are sitting flush on the top of the blender carafe and not angled up. If it's angled up even a little bit, you will never be able to pull a vacuum on it. Next, check your seals. All 3 seals on both machines. Make sure the mating surfaces are clean. And then, frankly, if your mating surfaces are clean, you're getting a good, you have a good jar, your vacuum pump is working, you should be able to pull a vacuum. These things are not rocket science. They are not that difficult to use. But I know, especially if you're new and you get a new vacuum blender, you're not really sure how to use it quite yet. You might, think it's not working and all these things. So I would just encourage you guys to have some patience with it. Once you start using it, you'll see the benefits and be like, all right, I know how to do this. I just press the button, I'll walk away for a minute, check my email, go to the bathroom, whatever you got to do, come back, it'll be fully suctioned out, and then you could start your blending process. Blend, and then remove the vacuum, take out your smoothie, and taste the pure enjoyment you're going to get of a greater flavor, better taste, less gas and bloating, because now you've been able to vacuum blend in a vacuum blender. Let's not forget about that cool tip I learned. It now you can plug in your Dynapro, or even the other cooler tip on how you can basically make a vacuum container out of a standard mason jar using some electrical tape. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, want more episodes like this with my tips and tricks, because I use my equipment each and every day in my home. I made like a soup today, I used the blender, I used the juicer, all kinds of stuff. I'm always using different appliances, and I'm experimenting and learning a lot, and that I love to share that with you guys so that it can enrich your life, so that you guys can live a better life because of my experimentation and what I'm learning and sharing. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please support me and make your purchase at discountjuicers.com. We sell the Biochef attachment so you can convert your classic Vitamix into a vacuum blender. We also sell the brand new Dynapro 2250 for 2021, and soon actually I'll be offering a manual pump version of the Dynapro for if those of you guys that want to save a little bit of money and use a manual pump and pump it out yourself, which is going to be cool. But yeah, always coming out with new stuff, and your support and your purchase at discountjuicers.com allows me to continue my work and make these videos. So I appreciate you guys so much who have supported me in the past, and appreciate you guys, and thank you in advance for those of you guys that will purchase from me in the future, so I can continue my mission to educate people about the power of the appliances to maximize your nutrition out of the fruits and the vegetables, which are the most nutritious foods on the entire planet. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and be sure to share this with other vacuum blenders, people that are vacuum blending, so that they can learn some of the tips and techniques. If they have a Dynapro, you could show them this video so they could learn about that adapter that's really handy, and also you could teach them about how to troubleshoot a vacuum leak in your vacuum blender so that you could be successful when vacuum blending. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you never miss out on my new and upcoming episodes. I come in every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up or you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. And make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. I have some cool videos coming up on comparing the new Santa 727 to some different style juices. I've really been enjoying the Santa 727. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge, over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel, dedicated to comparing and contrasting and teaching you guys all about the best appliances so that you guys can get more fruits and vegetables in you. I've posted links down below to some of the videos I've made with the all-new Dynapro 2250, including how to vacuum seal a mason jar in the carafe, which is a technique actually I no longer recommend. I recommend this electrical tape technique. It is significantly better and superior way to vacuum seal your jars simply and easily. So with that, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.